You are from New York, you said?
Yeah, I grew up on Long Island.
Okay, where in Long Island?
Jericho, it's in Nassau County.
Okay. So you grew up there. What was your home life like? What was the family like?
Trauma, tragedy, and adversity.
Okay.
That sums it up. To be a little bit more specific, when I was young, my mom had Hodgkin's in stage 4. It was terminal. She was one of the first people in New York State to smoke the first roll of G13, medical marijuana.
Oh.
And I was about 5 years old, I think. And I didn't really have a present mom at that point. And she was signed a waiver to be overly radiated that would buy her more time, but would result in cancer. And it bought her 18 years. So she miraculously went into a remission from the Hodgkin's in stage 4. And then mom came back. And then dad had open brain surgery. It was not successful, and they hit a nerve that created him to go deaf in one ear. And as a result of that, I think it just set him on fire with his alcoholism and drug addiction.
Okay.
So that was the beginning of recognizing that something was not right in that time. And then after that, my sister had 5 malignant brain tumors, and she was written up in the New York Times as a pitiful looking creature. And I was not made aware of this transformation. I had been at summer camp for 2 months. So upon coming home, I walked downstairs and I saw her in the wheelchair. And what I saw did not look human. I mean, to have said she looked like that, I was a little upset with the papers.
Yeah.
But the way she had been deformed and paralyzed and blown up, and the steroids and the chemo. So in that moment, I took every emotion, every reaction, every feeling, every thought, and I stuffed it down so hard. And I felt the tears coming up my eyes, but I forced them down. And that was the first moment in my life where I learned to numb. So I was engaging in disordered thoughts and thinking long before I picked up a drug or a drink. And the ability to numb myself and stuff trauma and stuff tragedy came first and foremost.
Wow. How old were you when you came home from camp and that was the
12.
scenario? You were 12?
Yeah.
Did you guys live near a toxic
Everyone
something?
asks that. No.
Or no? Mm-hmm. That's wild.
Yeah.
Just really bad luck.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was something that you guys consumed unknowingly. Or you don't think so?
Honestly, I don't know, because further along, my dad gets cancer and my mom gets cancer again.
That's insane.
So it's been the entire immediate family besides me. And I had my own version of a disease that tried to take me out.
Right, yeah. Wow, that is wild. Okay, so you're 12 when you come home from camp, and your sister looks completely different. And I love everything that you just said. That's so insightful, that when you look back at the span of your life, you can see that is the moment that I learned to protect myself by stuffing emotions. And that's such a tool for our community when we start to do that. And were you able to do that just by choice, or did you start to work like food into that, or guys into that, or like what, or was it drugs and alcohol that soon?
I have an eating disorder. It is the root. It started before I picked up drugs and alcohol. And it was for comfort and ease and security and safety. And the eating disorder nearly took me out as hard as drugs and alcohol did. So I'm in both fellowships.
Okay.
But at 13, when I heard about, my first thing was smoking a cigarette. And then when I heard about booze and I heard about marijuana, if there was a substance that was going to make me feel happy. See, I didn't feel happy when I numbed myself. I was still miserable. But if you're going to numb me and make me happy and a euphoria, then I'm down for it.
Right.
So at 13, I became addicted.
When did the eating stuff start? Prior to that?
Yes.
Okay, and what did that start to look like?
That started to look like hoarding food into my room, hiding it under clothing, always needing something. I suffered terribly from insomnia. And so I would eat throughout the night. I would take my little raccoon hands, go to the kitchen, and steal food from the snack cabinet that we weren't supposed to have. And I was like my own raccoon bandit. You know, I was stealing our own stuff and just hoarding it into the room. And so I ate for ease and comfort and security.
So binge eating, was there any restriction or purging or just the binging?
It was overeating. And later in life, it turned into anorexia and bulimia, and it flip-flopped. And then my choice of drugs allowed for me not to eat.
Sure. Okay.
So it got really dangerous.
I did the binging before it was classified as an eating disorder, right? Like when we were 19, 20, 21, I knew I had disordered eating. It was all I thought about. Like I could be having a conversation with you right now, and all I would be doing would be cataloging what I already ate, what I was going to eat later, how much I thought you weighed versus me. That would be all I would be thinking about. And it invaded my thinking for years. And then when I started using, it kind of abated a little, right, as it does. And then, over time, I got certified to teach spin, and it kind of changed. But it was binging, and I always thought, well, I don't really have a problem. I'm not bulimic or anorexic. And then when I got older, they classified binge eating as its own disorder, which is why I ask. Because like that in and of itself is disordered eating.
Yes.
So you're hiding food, eating throughout the night. What is the first thing you do at 13? You smoke weed or drink, or what's the first thing that you do?
My cigarettes came first. A tall glass of gin came second.
Gin?
Gin.
When you're 13?
Yeah.
Oh, did you like it? No.
No, I got so sick.
Right. Okay.
And then marijuana came shortly after that.
Okay. What made you want to smoke a cigarette?
My dad smoked Salem's, and I always thought it was cool. And I ended up stealing from him at night and, going outside. But it was just... I always wanted to do something and feel something that I wasn't.
For me, too, it looked cool. Mm-hmm. Ginger from Casino was like my hero, the movie Casino.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the Sharon Stone character. But like I had to learn the hard way that you can't be the casino fur-wearing beautiful one without the motel hallway one.
That's right.
That's part of the party. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that. I forgot about that part of the movie. I was like, no, I just want the roll in the dice, walking slow-mo through the casino, so glamorous with the Coke in the pocket. But you necessarily end up in the motel hallway too.
Yes,
you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So smoking weed, drinking. How does that start to progress for you over the years? And what's going on with school too? Are you going to school? Are you doing well?
I'm a good student. If I spend as much time studying as I did figuring out how to cheat,
okay,
I really would have had the GPA as well as I cheated. There was a lot of programming. My TI-82 calculator. Do you remember those?
Yes.
Yeah.
I forgot. Core memory unlocked right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big one.
Yep.
You had to buy it special when you hit like 7th grade or whatever.
Yes.
Oh, they were like $100
They were
too.
expensive, and you could just program all the answers in it.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Until you just told me.
Yeah. Well.
Damn.
Gotta go back in time.
Yeah. But you know what? My next question was, were you a good cheater though? And I'm sure you were.
Yes.
Because I feel like addicts are so fucking good at figuring things out. We just have to use our powers for good, not evil.
100%.
I wonder who else in my grade knew you could program those things. I bet people knew.
Huh?
Wow. Did someone show you, or did you figure it out?
We figured it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you're good at cheating enough to like pass classes and stuff?
Super smart without cheating, but didn't like studying. So we'd taken, tests off the teachers' desks. We would switch who else was sitting in front. We had under the lid of our caps. We really went all out.
When you say we, who do you mean?
My clique.
Okay.
The clique I was in.
Were you in a cool clique?
I was.
Like the bad ones too? I can picture this.
Actually, I was in a little bit of everything.
Okay.
And that goes along with my isms,
Sure.
because I wanted to be a part of, but never to get so close that I would be abandoned, because losing my sister really fucked me up.
So she passes away?
She passes away.
Oh, okay. How old are you when that happens?
I was just about to turn 13, and she was just about to turn 16.
Okay.
And, it was something that changed the entire trajectory of my life. And I didn't realize then the impact it would have even now. My folks are older, and I'm the only child. And then after that, there's really no family. Yeah. And I miss her more now than I did then.
Yeah.
Because this would be the time we'd be able to spend together.
How did your parents react after she passed away in terms of their relationship and their relationship with you?
My dad was deep into his addiction and drug use and drinking. Rehabs, out of control, just devastatingly drunk and drugged.
And you knew that?
Yes.
Okay.
And my mom was very absent because she was so stuck in mourning and trying to have a cause for my sister's passing.
Okay.
So she joined the Children's Brain Tumor Foundation and was very laser focused on everything to do with either learning disabilities, because my sister had a learning disability, or children's brain tumors.
So when do they start to realize, or do they start to realize that you're like drinking and smoking weed? They never know?
Not until they find it.
Oh, okay. When do they find it?
They found it. Do you remember the big button phones? Like the really big buttons?
Yeah.
I unscrewed it and I put the pipe in there with the marijuana, and they could tell the scent, but they had no idea where it was coming from.
That was a really good idea also.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So but eventually your dad unhooks the phone?
I don't know. My mom and the housekeeper found it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh. How old were you when that happened?
So I think I was maybe 14.
What was their response? What happened?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that bad then?
My mom is a Taurus, as am I. So I used to get into trouble. And my parents, after my sister passed especially, were very overprotective. You know, most of what I wanted to do, I couldn't. So I went and did it anyway.
Okay.
The more you told me I couldn't, the more I went and did it. And so the money was in the neighborhood to be able to access all kinds of drugs from New York City especially. And we started at 16 doing ecstasy and cocaine and ketamine and just really diving deep into what you don't really try until you're much older.
Especially back then.
Yeah, back then
I think people forget that, because now people do ecstasy a bit sooner than us. But that was definitely rare where I'm from too.
Yeah.
Like I didn't use until a bit later, but we weren't doing ecstasy until college. Maybe seniors, 18, 19, 20. So 16 definitely would have been sooner. So you had people that knew how to go to New York and get different drugs and bring them back. And okay. So you started with ecstasy and coke, getting like deeper into those.
And ketamine.
Okay.
Did a little acid at the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. Their motto is it's the greatest show on earth, and it fucking was.
Oh my God.
It really was.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine being on acid at a fucking circus.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It was.
That's crazy. Did you like acid?
It was the first and last time I did it because I had such a good trip and I've heard about the horrendous side of it.
Okay.
And never wanted to experience that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So acid once, the cocaine ecstasy combo I'm sure you loved if you were depressed and looking for a mood booster. That's like the best one.
100%.
Yeah. Do you graduate from high school?
Yeah, I graduated from high school.
Okay.
My father said I wouldn't amount to much unless I was in corporate America. So I went for a finance degree. And the last year in school at the University of, Delaware, 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 it was just, the University of Delaware was just out there.
Okay.
And it was a party school. But I went to Geneva, Switzerland abroad to study finance so that I could get my major in finance and economics. And then my minor was marketing and advertising. And that's what I really loved. Did really well in marketing and advertising. And I cheated my way through calculus and all these hard math things. I was not very good mathematical at all.
Okay.
But in Geneva, I ended up getting mugged in Prague. We were traveling on weekends, like Thursdays through Monday. And I got mugged in Prague and left with nothing but the clothes on my back in the middle of the winter at the U.S. Embassy door.
Oh, wow.
And from there, they gave me a temporary passport to get identification to get back to Geneva. And when you ride the bus system in Geneva, it's not like in New York where you have a Metro card. They just have random stops and the police come on and you have to show your ID.
Oh, crazy.
And I didn't have one.
Oh.
So now I'm being held in Geneva and my professor...
Like in custody?
Yes, and my professor had to come get me. And then from there I got the flu and I was like, I've had it. I want to go back to America. And so the best part of that whole trip was the flight home to America.
Yeah.
And in leaving early, they gave me a concentration in finance and economics, and then the minor in marketing and advertising.
Okay, so you graduated from college.
Yeah.
Okay. Will you tell me the mugging story? Do you remember it?
Yeah.
Okay, I would love to hear that.
Okay, so my eating disorder was super severe at that time. I had gotten to Geneva and I thought you could just walk into a pharmacy and tell them what narcotics you wanted and you could get it. Like my whole, how with the eating disorder, all you think about is food. All I was thinking about was food, my self-image, what I look like, how I dressed the entire time, but also my next high. So they were very strong and powerful, both of them at the same time. So I wasn't comfortable eating in Switzerland. The meats and the way they prepared things, I was so particular and so picky about my eating. And so we were at one destination, and I don't know how this worked itself out, but I learned the word dinde, which was for turkey. And I finally found turkey cold cuts. So I bought a bunch of them and I wrapped them up and I opened up my hobo, which was in the front of my body, so a front sling, and I'm packing it in there. And all of a sudden, we were at the subway, the metro. These men just start heavily pushing me into a subway car. Took a knife, slit the bag off of my chest.
Whoa.
And on that metro system, you can't get from car to car. There's no doors to get from one to the next.
Okay.
So you have to stay in that car until it stops and they get off.
Oh my gosh.
Mortified.
Were you alone?
I was separated from the group.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And my credit cards made it to Africa in like no time, and they spent the limit. The police report was in check, and it was a whole thing.
What drugs were you going to were you trying to find at pharmacies? What were you looking for?
Any type of opiate.
Okay, so you had started doing opiates by then.
Opiates, I started. I started opiates actually younger than. The ecstasy and whatnot. I would steal them from my father.
Okay, like his pain meds.
Yeah.
Did it ever get to a point where you were strung out or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you knew you wanted like Percocets or something over there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Dang, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. So you come back, you do graduate from college, and then where do you go?
Well, actually, it's interesting. My last night of graduation of college was one of the first times I attempted suicide.
Okay.
I think while in college is when my dad got cancer, and we weren't really speaking because of his alcoholism and addiction. And that was a bit of a tough time. And so when I graduated, I was so fearful of going back to toxicity. Like the idea of going backwards, the fear of it was so powerful that I just started cutting myself. And that behavior started as young as I got my first Bic razor. Cutting has been a thing for me as well.
Do you remember how you heard about cutting or thought of it? I always ask people this. Did you just think of it instinctively, or did someone tell you? Did you see it on TV? You just thought of it?
Yeah. Okay.
I always have wondered that. Like, how do you know that would help you to actually hurt yourself? But you instinctively knew that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think from shaving my legs, when that first cut came.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
The release is just as much of a release as if you were bulimic and purging your food.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's going on through high school, through college. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then tell me about the suicide attempt. What happened?
Well, I ended up in the hospital that evening. And it was just, you graduated, you're leaving, you're going, let's get you situated back home and get the right doctors on board and what have you. I started psychiatric medications in college, and I was diagnosed in college for bipolar, depression, anxiety, the whole gambit. And none of it was really managed because I was drinking and drugging all throughout college, and none of the medications I was taking were consistent or even helpful with what I was doing. So I was really suffering from mental illness big time. So I have got the eating disorder, the addiction, and the mental health all not being taken care of at the same time.
How do you think you were able to manage that and graduate?
I've been through so much, and I never give up until I did. And that was when I tried these attempts, and there have been many in my life But if you put something in front of me, I do it. You know, I'd like to say I don't give up, but I did in a major way many times. But the resilience, the tenacity, the power that I have to do good, and like you said, instead of the evil,
right?
Like it is a force, you know, to be reckoned with.
Yeah, totally. I think that's one of our massive advantages in life. I think when you're younger too, you can manage more things.
Yes.
You know, like you can potentially go to school while being a drug addict, but then later some of those pieces get harder to juggle.
Yeah.
You know,
the survival mode and the fight or flight mode I had been in for the majority of my life. And so I was using terrible coping mechanisms coupled with disassociating, and I was never present. I was always stuck in the past. I was always the victim. It was why me, all of it. Dark, negative Nancy, Debbie Downer, you name it.
Yeah.
That was me.
What was your social situation? Did you have friends or like a boyfriend, dating? Like, did you live in an apartment or in dorms? Like, how did that affect you with social dynamics?
Okay, so throughout college, on and off, for the 4 years, I was with the same person. I thought I was going to marry him, and I think he was prepared to ask me, and that was another fear of mine as well. We had gotten so close, but it was more like a brotherly love than it was, lust and things like that. And I got very fearful of that as well. My groups of friends, in college, I don't know if you've ever heard of the girl in Delaware, Amy Grossberg, who threw her infant into a dumpster. She went with Martha Stewart to jail.
Oh.
Yeah.
God, that sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, it was a really big deal. We were out to dinner with her the night before.
Did you know she was pregnant?
No idea.
Whoa.
She just looked very top heavy. She was carrying very high and wore very big clothing.
Wow.
Had no idea.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
When did it come to light that had happened?
The next day.
Oh, like they found the baby right away?
It happened that night.
Whoa. Okay. Damn. But she didn't go to, or that is when she went to jail.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I remember the Martha Stewart thing, but not like exactly what happened. So after your suicide attempt, do you go live with your parents?
I go back home. They know nothing about it.
Oh, okay.
I go back home and I start looking for work and for an apartment. But work had to come first before I got a place in the city. And that came very quickly for me.
Okay.
I got a job at Lehman Brothers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was an analyst and I was miserable. Very much so. I was drinking from the moment I woke up until I went to sleep. I barely slept any hours at night. I was just miserable. Yeah. I worked for a woman who would say, the walls are white and the sky is blue. And I would say, yes, the sky is blue and the walls are white. And she would go, no, no, no. The walls are white. And it was the same thing, but it had to be in her order or that way. And we were saying the same thing, and it was very frustrating. And I also didn't enjoy number crunching or, doing any of that stuff. And at that point, I had lost the majority of my friends. I was very much estranged from my family. I had no purpose. I did not like what I was doing one bit, and I was killing myself slowly. And so I graduated in 2000, and 2001 is when 9/11 happened. And I worked at 3 World Financial Center, but you have to go through One World Trade to get there. There's like a glass bridge that connects the 2 buildings. Okay. So I was outside One World Trade when the attacks on the Twin Towers happened. And, it was so surreal and so incredibly profound. Like, it's still hard all these years later. Like I had made mention, I just had my very first 9/11 sober ever since the event occurred. And I'm now processing that kind of stuff and, going over, seeing the bodies falling from the sky and the building coming down and the second plane hitting. And I recall having taken my entire canister of Xanax on the way home. The whole thing. I was just not there. I don't remember. I remember getting lost at one point. I don't remember where I was. I remember I walked all the way from the World Trade Center to 86th and Lex, and I lived on 87th and Lex. But I fell down on 86th, and that's when a man pulled over on the side of the road and said, "Where are you going? I'll take you there. I'm out looking for my son." Couldn't find him, and he worked at the trade as well.
Oh my gosh.
So I got a ride for a block. I just couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I was done. And in that moment when I went upstairs to my apartment, I busted open a bottle of wine immediately and was completely blacked out from all the Xanax I had taken on the way home. And I started cutting myself, and in that moment wanted more to die than anything else in life. I had no purpose. I would have traded my spot with any single person in the world that day. Yeah. A first responder, a victim, you name it, anybody. I had nothing going for me.
Yeah.
It was just me and my bubble. So I took that disability check like a winning lotto ticket to drink and drug as a career.
You got disability from having had been so close?
Well, what happened was after 9/11, I went on a trip to Turks and Caicos with a gal who I went to summer camp with, who lost her husband in the World Trade, her fiance. And I went to Turks and Caicos, and there I acquired a really rare type of toxic poisoning called ciguatera. I ate too much of a reef fish that feeds off of algae and coral at a certain longitude and latitude of water, and it's an infectious disease. So I was rushed home from Turks and Caicos, taken straight to the hospital in New York City to infectious disease, and they were able to figure out that I had ciguatera toxicity poisoning. That, coupled with my mental health crisis from 9/11, put me on disability.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So when do you go to Turks and Caicos? 9/11 September, obviously, like the next month or two months later?
I have no idea the timeline.
Okay, but soon.
Yeah.
Right, okay. And, Kelly told me off air around the 9/11 event, you say a little bit about it, right? But not a lot. Do you just mind if I ask, and if you do, don't answer. Did you hear it first or see it first? And because no one knew what it was yet, did you run away? You had to have ran, right? Because you didn't know what was going on?
I think my first reaction to it was the sight of it.
Okay.
It was such a loud. What I heard was the white noise, which today if you leave a fan running, if you leave an air conditioning on, it's a trigger for me. But you hear that white noise of the plane just coming in, and then at the moment it hits, it's that same impact of the building coming down.
And you were that close.
Yeah.
I can't believe you made it. I mean, thank God you made it out.
Yeah.
And I've seen video of the dust and, damn. Wow.
You could see it was so painful. You looked up and the sky was raining people, and you could see them in their, suits and ties and just falling all these floors and stories.
Wow. You're the only person I've met that was that was that close to that. Wow, that's incredible. So you run away, end up going to Turks and Caicos, come back. So now you're on disability and just start drinking at that point?
Well, I had never stopped, really.
Okay.
I mean, since 13, I'd never stopped.
Right, yeah.
But it became very heavy. In college, I became extremely addicted to Ritalin and Adderall. We didn't have much cocaine in Delaware, so we called Ritalin poor man's cocaine. I didn't know that Ritalin and Adderall were like meth. I've just learned that not too long ago.
Oh, really? Oh, that's funny.
And
you would snort them?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was a really, really heavy addiction of mine. And so after 9/11, I got heavily involved in doctor shopping, getting the Adderall, getting the Ritalin. I was getting 90-day supplies. I was going to mom and pop shops, regular pharmacies. I had different insurance. I mean, I was a mastermind at that kind of stuff, where I ended up having my own pharmacy. At one point, after the ciguatera, in my apartment in Manhattan, I had been picking really, really bad. Skin. To a point where I had ulcers and lesions and abrasions, and I had to wear false skin. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I went to go turn on the light in the bathroom, and I saw on my arm what looked like a little maggot. in one of the lesions, and I flicked it off with my finger. But as the light turned on in the bathroom, I saw my body, and all I saw were maggots crawling out of my entire body. So I mummy wrapped my body with toilet paper. I called 911. When they got there, I was handcuffed to a gurney, and I was committed for 3 weeks and brainwashed that there's no such thing as worms. There's no such thing as worms. And when I got out, the infestation turned out to be real.
What?
Yeah.
You actually had maggot? You were right?
They were called carpet beetles, and they start in the form of larvae, and then they harden into a pod, and then they come out like a little bit bigger than a little bit smaller than a fruit fly. And they are bugs, and then they grow wings. So it's 4 stages.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So you were right. That was happening.
But they weren't crawling out of my body, but it was actually there.
Okay.
So I was too scared to tell anyone that I was going to get committed again.
Oh no. So what did you do?
So I started losing my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I really went into a mental crisis and had a breakdown.
Wow. So how did you deal with the actual real infestation?
Okay. They told me to treat it as though I had a fire. Not to take anything with me, and insurance doesn't cover anything. Nothing can go with you to your next apartment, because if you carry the eggs, in 6 months, the gestation period will have ended and you will have another outbreak. Of course, I didn't listen. Oh. I carried the eggs, and 6 months later, I had a big problem in this new apartment. I couldn't take it. I just couldn't take it anymore. So I ended up at Silver Hill in Connecticut. A mental health and rehab facility, but I wasn't there for the drugs and drinking, of course, right? I went for mental health, and I was able to avoid a lot of the drugs and drinking type of treatments and programs because of my mental health all the time. So I was at Silver Hill for, I think, 45 days, and then after that, on 9/11, they transferred me to the Life Healing Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico for 45 days. There I was able to get my Adderall. I was using the entire time I was there. Same at Silver Hill. I always managed to get whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you doing, so my husband just had a really bad relapse on Ritalin. Mm-hmm. The only person I think I've ever known where that was their main drug. And the paranoia that it caused him, I've never seen happen even from meth or Adderall. Were you doing a lot of Ritalin before that happened? I mean, do you think that was part of why it seemed so bad?
I was absolutely in psychosis.
Right. Okay.
I was delusional.
Right.
I mean, I was so far from being able to decipher between what was true and false, what was real and wasn't. And that's a pattern that continued throughout my life. I suffer from delusions of parasitosis.
Oh.
And now it happens to me even when I'm sober. So it's something that I've brought along with me throughout my lifeline since the first occurrence.
But that first one was true.
Yeah.
Okay. When did you figure out, when did somebody say, no, this is actually happening, you need to be treated for this? How did you figure that out?
Oh my God, I was so scared. I called my parents and they came in, and under the bed, I mean, you could see it.
Oh, they could see it. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Oh my gosh. How does that start?
The infestation?
Yeah.
No idea. Said it could have come from, I ordered from my dog in bulk. The cardboard boxes, sometimes with the pet food in it.
Okay.
There could be one, and that's all it takes.
Okay. An ex-boyfriend of mine, I think, had that too, the parasite, the fear of infestation. And when I was using meth with him, I kind of got it too, because it starts to seem real.
Yes.
And I remember I just told this story recently. And when you're doing drugs, and we were off and on homeless, we had homeless people with us, it's also actually possible, right? And so it's you don't know what's real and what's not. And I just told the story for the first time a few weeks ago, and I was looking at his back, and I saw something in his skin. And I didn't want to freak him out. And so I started trying to get it. And it was crawling away. I can still see it. And I don't even know how long passed. I mean, hours. And then he figured out what was going on, and he starts freaking out. And then it must have been so long that I just wasn't high anymore. Mm-hmm. And I realized there wasn't anything there. Mm-hmm. and I had picked so deep into his skin, he was missing a piece of his tattoo. Like, however deep the ink goes, I had pulled it all out. And I didn't even know that that was an actual condition. The delusions of, what is it?
Parasitosis.
Wow. Okay. I wonder, did you have that before, or was it meth induced? Or not meth induced,
well,
but, stimulant induced.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. I bet that's a more common thing than people realize.
It is.
Yeah. So you end up in New Mexico. You're on Adderall still. And then where does your life go from there?
Well, in that time period, right after 9/11, I had found out that my mom was diagnosed again with breast cancer. She had a double mastectomy. My dad at that time was back in a rehab. I mean, this has been the pattern, right, of my existence. And when I left the Life Healing Center, I left against medical advice. It was trauma recovery so hardcore. Like, we'd have to sit in a room with a sofa pillow and slam it on the ground and scream out our pains and our fears, and I just wasn't into it. I was numbed by the Adderall. I got nothing out of it.
So you go back home. Okay. And then
I moved into another apartment in New York City. I moved 5 times in 7 years in Manhattan, all because of my wreaking havoc, chaos, creating problems, tsunami, the bugs. It got to a point where the second time I got the outbreak, I took a knife to my sofa and I just started cutting everything apart so that I couldn't take anything with me again, and just totally delusional.
Did you have roommates ever?
No.
Okay. Well, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure roommates would have been like, oh my God.
Well, come to California, all my roommates bailed on me. So,
Okay. So how long do you live in Manhattan?
So I was there from 2000 till 2009. I had been in IOP, residential, the Life Healing Center, rehabs, you name the type of facility, I was put in it. It was always due to an ultimatum or a threat. Never once did I have the willingness or desire to get sober. Not once did I have the willingness really to even live. And it makes things super difficult when you don't have the desire to live.
Yeah.
You have to beat that before you could beat getting sobriety.
Totally. I've actually noticed with my husband, kind of the same thing. Like, knowing, for me, the step one was knowing if I used, I was going to lose everything. And that mattered to me. But like with him, he's gotten to a place where he knows he'll lose everything, but doesn't care.
Right.
And that's a scarier, harder place to live.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So throughout those years, did you think you were a drug addict deep down or no?
Oh, I knew it. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. You just didn't want to stop.
Yes.
Okay.
It became my lifestyle.
Yeah. Were you working during that time? How would you support yourself?
I did, I was a personal assistant, anything under the table, because I remained on disability.
Oh, right. Okay. And would that allow you to have insurance to go to places? How were you going to places?
I had health insurance.
You did. So what brings you to, in 2009, you moved to California?
2009, my folks gave me no choice. They did. They said, you have no more apartment, you have no more dog, you're out of everything. You can go to San Diego. They have great recovery for a year. And then after a year, if you're sober, you come back, you get your apartment back, you get your dog back. Like the promises then.
Yeah.
I came out in 2009. I had to be chaperoned by a gal that I called my sponsor, but had been lying to her about everything the whole time. She chaperoned me out. I tried to get drunk at the airport, nearly missed the plane. And I came out to a recovery home in La Jolla. And I was there for 8 months. And I was asked to leave, not asked to leave, I was told to leave because of my eating disorder. And that became prominent for a minute because I had the 8 months of not picking up. So they moved me into their sober living as a second chance. And I was thrown out of there for my eating disorder. I moved into a third sober living at Wind and Sea, and I too had to leave there because of my eating disorder. So it was really out of control. And it was after that my dad was at a meeting in New York, and a man from San Diego went to that meeting in New York and said that he was from San Diego as a visitor. So after the meeting, my dad went up to this gentleman, his name is Kurt, and said, when you go back, can you find my kid?
They didn't know where you were?
At that point, I had distanced myself from my dad. There was a whole bunch of stuff that happened with financial. And at that point, I was just hopping from one sober living to the next. And so this man, Kurt, came back. He found me at Dawn Patrol, which is the meeting that I went to for the first time.
The one on the beach in Encinitas? Or I guess there's a bunch of them probably. Okay.
PB. God's Garage. And he found me, invited me over, and in talking, somehow the generosity and just the opportunity to move in with his girlfriend while working the program came about. And so I moved in with her, and I relapsed there, and I was asked to leave. And after that point, I moved in with a drug dealer.
What about the eating disorder would make people say, you can't live here? How did it affect the people in the home to the point where they were like, you need to go?
Well, it's no surprise that many people do suffer from eating disorders that also suffer from addiction and alcoholism.
So it was triggering to other people.
And it was definitely triggering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've witnessed that in sober livings. You know, there's always, typically in a women's sober living, there is someone whose eating disorder starts to come up, and then there's like a house meeting where you talk to them because everybody can tell, and it does get problematic. And I've actually kind of forgotten about that until right now, but I can remember the last several times I was in residential treatment that happened with a few different women. And yeah, I remember having house meetings, and I think they had to leave too, which is actually really sad because I'm assuming they weren't sent to eating disorder treatment, and neither were you, right?
Right.
So how do you meet the drug dealer that you move in with, and how old are you now when you meet the drug dealer and move in with him?
So it's 2010. So I can't do the math in my head. I need my TI.
We were 30 or 31. We actually both moved to San Diego in 2009.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd been in LA, but that's when I moved down.
Yeah, I don't remember a moment of my 30s.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a blur, as are my 20s. But 3 decades have gone by that I can't really account for much. But I moved in with him. I found it on Craigslist. I didn't know, but, we find each other.
Yeah.
We find each other. And he was dealing Roxy's.
Yeah.
And that really wasn't my thing, but it became my thing amongst other things. And one day he locked me out on the balcony and just never came back for me. 24 hours had passed. I got back inside, and that night when he passed out, this guy Kurt and his girlfriend came and helped me move out while he was passed out. And I moved 13 times from that point moving forward. And everybody moved out on me. I was the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get strung out on the Roxy's with him? Like, were you sick if you didn't have one, or was it not?
To that degree. I was just really big. I met a gentleman off of Craigslist. I call him a gentleman to make it sound softer, but I met a dude on Craigslist.
Yeah.
It was super unsafe. He came over and he's like, hey, do you want to do speed? And for me, I'm thinking cocaine, because in New York, speed is like cocaine.
Okay.
I never really referred anything to meth while I was in New York. And so I thought I was doing a line of cocaine. And when I did the line, it was meth. And I fell in love. I might not have met the love of my life, but I met my lover, right?
Right, totally. Yeah. So the guy that you met on Craigslist, like what do you mean? Like the encounters?
When he came over?
Right, but I mean like just how did you meet? Like what was the purpose of meeting somebody on Craigslist?
Oh, to like dangerously date.
Oh, okay.
I was out of my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you meant that or the roommate guy.
No.
This is a separate thing.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. So you met him and he did meth.
Yeah.
And you did meth with him.
And then I got hooked up with the dealer. I started dating the dealer, and I went on a bender for 2 years. Every single day. It got really heavy, and in that time I moved 13 times out of, or was moved out on. And in 2012, I finally moved out of a dual master bedroom because the roommate moved out on me and I still had to pay the rent for a dual. They allowed for me, after proving myself to them, capable of holding the lease for myself, into a 1-bedroom. And when the movers moved me, I could tell in 1 second that the mover was addicted to tweak. Okay. They all were. You could tell that they were all tweaking. Once you know it, you know it.
Yeah.
And I thought that would make out for a really good date.
Yeah.
So we just started hanging out a lot, doing meth. One night, he asked if he could stay over. with his daughter, and that the next day he'd go to work and I could have a girls' day with his daughter because he needed someone to babysit for that day. So I woke up in the morning with this gentleman. I call these people gentlemen. It really wasn't a gentleman.
Right. Yeah.
This
I
guy.
got you.
All right, this guy. He left for work, and when he left for work, his daughter ran up to me and she said, "I don't like it when my daddy touches my no-no." And I had just smoked a bowl of meth, and I was drinking nonstop, like alcoholic poisoning nonstop sake.
Oh no.
And in that moment, I lost my shit. I wanted nothing more than to save this little girl. And in doing so, as tweaked out as I was, imagine voice recorder, laptop recording, tablet recording.
Oh, you start trying to set him up.
Right. All I had to do was call CPS. That was it.
Right.
But I went like bonkers.
Yeah.
And so he came back for her, and the whole thing was planned. He ended up putting bath salts in my pipe instead of meth. And
This is all in one day?
this is the same day.
Okay.
He ended up putting bath salts in my pipe instead of meth and called the police, knowing that when he got here, I was going to be all sorts of out of it.
Okay.
And I refused to give her back to him. I nearly got convicted of kidnapping.
Oh no.
And when the bath salts hit in, I was a harm to myself and others, and the police took me to Las Colinas. Before we went, we took a pit stop at Alvarado Hospital,
Okay.
where I was diagnosed with an extreme UTI.
Oh.
And I was taken in a bikini, and you can't have strings, so they put me in a paper suit. It's like, it literally looks like paper towel, and it's a bodysuit.
To jail?
To jail. And then I sweat through and withdrew through that entire thing. And they put me in solitary confinement. So I'm on a cement floor with a drain, with a UTI, slit in the door where they threw in a ham sandwich and a carton of milk, and a clock on the wall, and the tick and the tock haunts me to this very day.
Oh my gosh.
I've never experienced the feeling of bath salts, nor would I ever dream in my life. I don't know who on earth would want to feel that way.
I never did it.
Oh my God.
It's one of the only things I've never done. But yeah, same. It seems awful.
It was beyond awful. I finally made it to the general population. We went to go see the DA the following day, and it wasn't even a misdemeanor. They just completely let me go. But when I got back home from Las Colinas, the laptop, the tablet, the voice recorder, everything was stolen.
Oh no.
So he had broken in. And in that moment, I felt very unsafe. I didn't want to be there, and I had nobody left to call.
Yeah.
I had no friends. I had nobody in California. My dad's friend, since he's 12 years old, she is the only person I could think of to call. And I'm like a random gal calling and saying I need help, but I did it. She came over, and I asked her, please stay with me or please take me with you. And she said, I have other engagements, and I've made plans. I'm sorry. And she left. And when she left, I drank a bottle of Pledge. I took every single pill in my apartment, and I slit my wrists. It wasn't an attempt. At that point, the only person that was going to find me was the landlord coming for the rent.
Right.
I was completely estranged from my family. I had nobody in California. I had no life, no purpose. Nobody was going to know I was gone.
Yeah.
I hadn't talked to my mom in almost 4 years. I don't know if I was out for a day or two, but upon awakening, I was in such a delusion and so psychotic. The bath salts had still not worn off. I thought I heard this guy breaking into my apartment to try to kill me. And so in fight or flight, I lost my mind, and I took the bedsheet off the bed. I tied it around the balcony railing, and I tried to get to the apartment below me. But the bedsheet snapped, and I fell 5 stories onto the pavement. I landed on my feet. I broke my heels, my ankles, my feet, and everything along the way up the back of my spine from the impact. And my mom got the call, we need you to come identify, and I couldn't speak nothing. I don't even know how they got her number.
Yeah.
And
couldn't speak from the impact of the fall or the bath salts, just everything together. Just everything.
I was gone. I was not cognizant whatsoever.
Yeah.
And at that point, everybody knew that this was going to be a mental health crisis coupled with spinal cord injury. And a whole mess of things. So I ended up getting conserved and put on conservatorship. I was deemed not of sound mind. When they talk about the constitutionally incapable variety, that was me.
Yeah, but literally, actually. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I know. And I was in the hospital for a year in skilled nursing. I got out. And on September 29th, 2012 is when the fall happened from the balcony. I, in that day, was prescribed the maximum dose of fentanyl that somebody of my size and weight could consume transdermally. And I've been addicted to it up until a year and 10 months ago.
Oh,
since 2012. I've been using and abusing fentanyl.
Every day?
Every day, all day. Along with Adderall, Dilaudid, Oxy, Ativan, Xanax, and booze.
So did you have a prescription for patches this whole time?
Yep.
Because of your injury?
Yeah.
So where would you live, work, support yourself? You've been in San Diego the whole time.
Right.
Right. And your parents aren't here.
Right.
So what did your life look like day to day? You're addicted to fentanyl, but how are you living, sustaining yourself?
After the hospital, I moved into, on all those fucking drugs, a recovery home took me, which I have mixed feelings about. And it was co-ed. I had not adjusted to my lifestyle with the spinal cord injury yet. It was a completely inappropriate placement for me to have attempted. I had a very bad experience there, and I moved into their sober living instead. In their sober living, I was given 24 hours notice to leave because they said my insurance wasn't paying quickly enough. I'm sure there was something else going on.
Right.
And I found a sober living that was willing to take me again on all these medications.
Okay.
And so I chose the single room in the sober living. I isolated. After 9/11, I was very agoraphobic. I could not leave my four walls. I could not walk more than a 4-block radius from my home.
Bet.
And I did the same thing to myself when I moved into this sober living. I was still in shock from everything that had happened. My mind was not clear. And here I am getting high every day. And so when I took that single room, I isolated to a point where I was always there. So I ended up managing. And
sure, of course. That's the sober living manager path.
It is.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And so I'm managing this place, and I'm struggling with my drugs and my booze the whole time.
Do you have prescriptions for Adderall and fentanyl?
Everything.
Okay. And are you, when you say you're abusing them, you're snorting them, you're doing more than you're supposed to?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Everything.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Did you ever move past the fentanyl patches? I'm assuming you do, but maybe later.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you just stay with the patches?
I learned how to abuse the patches.
Okay.
In a separate way.
How do you abuse them?
Okay. Well, one is you can cut them.
Okay.
Or not. And you just put the patch on your tongue.
Oh, okay.
And so
it's stronger.
And you're getting everything at once.
Oh, got it.
Because it's not seeping into your skin.
Okay.
So that would amplify it by like 1,000,000%. You know, you could chew on the patch, smoke the patch.
And you would do all those different things?
Yeah.
Okay. And snorting the Adderall and...
The Adderall was a really big one.
Okay.
And the Dilaudid was huge.
What was the prescription for the Dilaudid? That's pills that you can take usually?
That's morphine.
Okay, but in a pill form?
Yes.
Okay, and same thing, just snort them maybe, or swallow them, or just whatever.
Eat them,
yeah. Okay. Wow, and you're managing the sober living.
Right.
Like testing other people.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And the drugs and the booze stopped working.
Yeah.
I mean, think of it. It happened in 2012. Now it's 2016 or 17. And I couldn't figure out what the heck to do.
Yeah.
So my alcoholic mind convinced me the best next thing to do would be to be a dealer. And so I became a dealer for years.
How did you start getting your, how did you meet the people where you could get bulk
I
to
had
sell?
a Craigslist ad. Yeah.
But how did you find, that was how you sold?
Right.
Okay. How did you find the big amounts to get? Or you were selling your own stuff?
I was getting all my own stuff.
Oh, okay. Through the doctor shopping.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My husband also told me when I met him that you could buy drugs on Craigslist. That's how he would relapse. And he would look for Roxy surf shorts.
Yep.
Yeah, size 30 or whatever. And I was like, oh my God. When he finally told me that, we'd been together for a few years and I didn't know any of that. It was like a whole new world. I had no idea.
They call the Dilaudid dillies. So if you were to write in the subject line, what's the dilly? Or, tutoring.
Did you ever get busted?
So I thought, now, mind you, I leave this house in 2018 and I move into a place of my own, like 2 houses down from the sober living into a condominium. And there I continued in this act for a long while. And I began using it again because my tolerance had come back a bit. And I thought I got busted. I was stuffing Dilaudid into troll dolls, mailing them out of state. And the guy called me from out of state and said, they found it. They're coming to my door. And he was just totally psychotic, delusional. I don't know what was going on. In that moment, I was like, I got to stop. But it wasn't until that moment.
Right.
And then in that moment, when I realized the gravity, thank you, of the situation, the shame and the guilt, I'll tell you, I had survivor's guilt beyond belief when my sister passed. Survivor's guilt on 9/11, unlike anything I could ever describe. There's just no word. But the guilt and shame that I felt for having dealt my prescription narcotics was worse than both of those 2 events.
Wow. Okay.
And it caught up to me so drastically that I became homeless, fiancé-less, dogless, familyless, friendless, and just 2 bags in my hand.
So wait, you have a fiance at some of this point?
I do.
Where do you meet the guy?
I meet
at what
the
stage
guy
of this?
in 2016.
So that's who you move in with when you leave the sober living?
Right.
Was he in recovery?
No.
Did he have any idea what you were up to?
No.
Oh, God. Also, I just want to stop for 1 second and say thank you for coming here, for sharing this amazing story. I really appreciate it. I had no idea. I knew Nakia said you had a crazy, wild story, and, Skylar said the same. And I just didn't know. The troll dolls is so good. Like, that was a really good idea. And I can just picture a little troll doll stuffed with dope. It's like...
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, it's
all
nuts.
Yeah.
So obviously you were strung out too, right? Like if you didn't do fentanyl, you would get sick.
Yeah.
Okay. So you move in with the boyfriend. You guys get engaged.
Not until like 3 years later.
Okay. So
we dated for 8 years.
Okay, it's not clear how much you're using drugs to him?
No, not really. But we were drinking together, and I smoked a bit of pot in front of him. But as far as what I was abusing, he didn't know.
And he didn't know you were selling anything?
Eventually.
So, and you were getting disability the whole time?
Right.
Okay, so he assumes maybe that's how you have money, because you're not working.
Right.
Okay, all right. So how does he eventually catch you buying, selling, and what happens the day that the guy says they're on their way? Like, do you actually change any behavior? What do you do?
I forget about it. The paranoia that I had felt while meth induced, and like if I was smoking wax at the time as well. The paranoia was so profound, and just the idea of not knowing, because I couldn't call this guy back, I couldn't text him. Like in that moment, I was writing down like a will for myself and what anybody should do if this happens, if that happens, who to call, and blah, blah, blah. And I was just planning like they were going to show up any day.
Right.
And I was 5150'd a few times before I lost my place because my fiance left me. After he left me, I really started to downward spiral. So PERT showed up a lot.
Okay.
And the police were at my place a lot. The HOA wanted me out of there.
Okay.
And so I did have to leave. And I left. I put what I could in storage. And I started going from hotel to motel to inn. And I did that for 6 months. And
just on your disability check?
Well, in 2010 or 11, I was hit by a car walking home from the grocery store with 2 Magnums in my bag that was heavy. And I'll be honest, whether or not I fell into the car or the car hit me, I couldn't tell you to this day. I got a settlement from that. Okay. So I had that to work off of as well.
Plus the disability.
And plus the money I had made prior to coming out here.
So you're bouncing around from hotel to hotel.
Yep.
And what year is this?
This is now 2023.
Okay. Internally, because you're obviously smart, you majored in finance and did well as an analyst. internally, you must have been so sad. Like, this is my life. How did I get here? Did you have an awareness of that?
No, it was I was overcome with that shame and that guilt and that, like, everything was like, but I was so delusional. I was so much in psychosis. My jam was always falling into psychosis.
Okay.
So here I am on the run for 6 months thinking they are following me.
Right.
Those 6 months, I attempted suicide 7 times. And one of those times was while in the hospital. I accidentally was given a butter knife. And I slit my wrists, and I make mention of that to show how absolutely morbid and the pits of despair I was at.
Yeah.
Like, that's how much I wanted to die.
Yeah.
And I was 51-50'd so many times in a row. They ended up 52-50ing me, where I stayed for 40 days. I got out, but while at that 52-50, I'm sorry, at Scripps Mercy, an H&I panel came in. And these girls shared. And in that moment, I had been in and out of the program for half my life at this point, but I was never all in. I never had the willingness. I never had the desire. I can't say that I've ever attempted sobriety until now. And so when they came, I remembered the mustard seed that had been planted many moons ago from the book, and it was page 124 from the Family Afterward, where it said, helping others who still suffer to recover is what makes life seem so worthwhile to us now. Cling to the thought that in God's hands, your dark past is your greatest possession, the key to life and happiness for others. And a light bulb went on, and I was like, holy shit, wait, I could help people the way this H&I panel came in. Like, one day I could sit in that seat and say I was here as you are now, and that helping them will help me, but also I will have a purpose. That everything that's ever happened to me serves a purpose now. I could never make sense of why so much tragedy, so much trauma, so much bad luck, all of it. But now everything, even 9/11, even losing all of it, serves a purpose. Because if I share with people the truth, the rigorously honest truth about my life, and they see I can recover, it's hope. And all I want to do is bring hope. So I left that 52-50, and the hospital prescribed me a 30-day supply of fentanyl rather than the 3 days they were supposed to. I put the whole box on in one night.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
And I still woke up the next morning.
Were you trying to kill yourself?
Yes.
You were?
Yep.
Okay.
I had
So
one last
though you'd
attempt.
had that moment of hope.
Yep. It was the seed.
It's still like,
Yep.
Yeah.
Fleeting.
Okay.
The moment I saw the full prescription
Sure.
of the fentanyl,
Yeah. That's going to override anything.
Yeah.
That's the habit for all these years.
Yeah.
Do you remember if it was an H&I? Was it AA, NA, HA? Do you remember what group
AA.
it was? It was AA.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I went to the lobby and grabbed an AA book directly afterwards.
Yeah.
And I picked it up and I turned to page 124 to read it. And it was in Spanish. And although I couldn't translate, I had memorized that page.
Yeah.
So even reading it in Spanish, like,
You knew.
I knew.
Yeah.
I knew.
Wow.
Yeah.
That makes me want to do H&I again.
Yeah, I love H&I. I'm addicted to it.
Yeah. I
Yes.
did it for a while. I did it for the past year or so. And yeah, I had stopped, but that's really moving.
Yeah.
That's why we do H&I. And H&I, for guys listening, if you don't know, is hospitals and institutions. You go into hospitals and institutions and, share your story.
Yeah.
So you get out, but you take all of the fentanyl at once.
Right.
You wake up anyways.
Right.
And then
at this point, I am in complete delirium, and I am convinced that I'm immortal. And I'm an X-Man, a mutant, something, and I cannot die. Like, if I stood in front of a train and it hit me, I'd pop right back up like a cockroach. I truly believed that I was invincible. And it wasn't that I was bad at killing myself. It's that God was saving me every single time. And I didn't realize that. My whole life I resented God for thinking he'd given me all of the shit I'd been through, not realizing he was there to help me through it all. So now I'm looking at it and saying, well, if I can't die, what's the next best thing for me? I have no self-worth, all self-hate, all self-harm. I don't feel deserving to be out. I went to the police station and I confessed to my crime. I went to the sheriff's
selling
station.
drugs?
Yep.
Oh, shit.
With them on me.
The sheriff, San Diego sheriff?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what did you say?
I said,
what did you bring with you?
I had my fentanyl,
Okay.
my Dilaudid. It
Okay.
was all in my bag.
But they were prescribed.
Yes.
But,
Yep.
okay.
And I went in and I said, I'm here to confess to a crime. I'd rather do it with an investigator and not like just tell you here and now what's
like a
happened.
beat cop in the lobby.
Right. And they had me sit there in that urine-filled room for 2 hours. And then the hottest cop I've ever seen in my life. I don't even think to this day, I'm wondering if I'm in a movie or not, because when he came out, I was like, are you real? Like, holy shit. And he said to me, Miss, you've been here at the wrong station for over 2 hours. And he said, where are you living right now? And at that moment, I had checked out of the last hotel on the block that would take me. I got thrown out of every hotel I went to.
For what? Just running around being delusional?
Crazy.
Oh my God.
And for 6 months, I had to keep moving and moving and
You're
moving.
like the person I would have totally run into, because I was homeless doing the motel hopping too. And I know I would have, because I would have realized that you had some money somehow. And I would have kind of tried to like latch on a little with you. And then we would have gotten in some fight. And you know what I mean? Like, I can see this. I can see like the relationship we would have had for like a week in 2012.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
We'd
like,
be best friends day 1 and then enemies day 7.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I went from these hotels to motels and everything, and now I'm at the police station, and they told me that I had to go to the Carlsbad police station. So I went there, and I confessed to my crime again. I was handcuffed. First, I had to put my hands on top of a car. They had to search me. And they put me in the back of the car. And here I think I'm going to jail. They took me on another fucking 5150.
Sure.
They thought I was a lunatic.
Sure.
And I was there being rigorously honest.
How did you get from do you have a car?
I do.
So this whole time you're driving yourself around?
This whole time.
Holy shit.
And my dog.
Okay.
And, in one of the hotels, I overdosed in the parking lot. My dog sat by my side until somebody found me. The police came. They put him in puppy jail. They took me to the ER.
Okay. Do you still have your dog?
Yes, I got him back. I had to give him up for a year.
Okay.
And I actually gave him to the woman I called the night before the fall from the balcony.
Oh, okay.
And I hadn't spoken to her in 10 years.
Wow, okay.
Because I held her responsible.
Sure, yeah. Okay. So you get yourself to Carlsbad, you confess, and they bring you to the hospital.
They bring me to Exodus in Vista.
I know Exodus.
Just one big room, reclining chairs, and 24/7 watch for suicide, 3 days. And of every day of my life that I've experienced, those 3 days were the hardest 3 days of my life.
Do you think because you were like detoxing or sober?
Yeah.
Oh.
They sent me to Tri-City.
Yeah.
And what went on there, it's almost as if they asked me to fill out a form of my biggest triggers and traumas, and then they all came into fruition in those 3 days. I legit think it was intentional.
Yeah.
It was really scary.
Yeah.
And I was feeling awful, but when I got out on a Friday, I went to my mental health program to sign up. And thereafter, I called the gal that did the H&I, and I said, I'm going to need a meeting tomorrow morning. And I was homeless in Oceanside at this point. I drove all the way to Mission Hills by the airport. I went to that meeting. They called on me. I said, hello, my name is Kelly. I'm an alcoholic, and I have to be careful with my words. And I bit my tongue so hard and said, that's it. That's it. Kelly, there's no such thing as a version of a truth. You're either telling the truth or you're lying. You can't be kind of pregnant. You either are or you're not. There's no more versions, stretching the truth, making stories, glorifying, none of it. Just be as honest as possible. And it was that moment that saved my life, because I am the type that needs to be rigorously honest before anything else, before the willingness, before anything. I need to get honest.
Yeah.
And so I went back on day 5. I got a temporary sponsor on day 6, which was a Monday. I went to my mental health program. And then that night I went to a meeting. I met a man who on day 6 I have prayed with every single day since day 6 of my sobriety till present, to pray in the morning on the phone, because I knew I wouldn't incorporate that into my spiel. And on day 7, I made it to a Zoom meeting, and I shared, and a woman thereafter said, I can totally relate to your story. And I said, you fucking kidding me? Like, what? How? Why? How? And in that moment, I'm like, damn, she should be my sponsor.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because if she can relate, then that's the most comforting thing. And I could tell you my dark truths.
Yeah.
So day 7, she became my sponsor. I've called her every single day. And it's a year and 10 months later.
Oh my gosh.
We worked the steps. At day 30, between my mental health and just drinking and drugging and now finally being free of the drugs and the alcohol for 30 days, I felt a happiness in my life that, and I'm 44 at the time, that I'd never felt before. And because I'm addicted to more, I wanted fucking more happiness. I wanted that shit to turn into joy.
Yeah.
So I kept going. And at 60 days, prior to that, my mania, my delusion, my hummingbird in and outside my body, like zzz, 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 all of it just quieted. And I got peace of mind at my 60 days. And then at 90 days, I got a freedom back that I didn't know existed because of the boldness and the bravery of other men and women in the programming. Having discussed it, I found my voice towards a silent killer that had been a part of me for 44 years. And finding my voice is a freedom unlike anything else I can describe. So happiness, joy, and freedom. I'm not saying that it was smooth sailing since 30, 60, 90.
Yeah.
But I got a taste of all that and I wanted more. So I kept going. I secretary meetings, I lead meetings, I do the H&I panels. I have a panel at the Women's First Step House every other Monday. I got a sponsee. I found shelter at 27 days of my sobriety.
That was my next question. So you're living in your car the first 27 days?
No.
Or hotels?
Hotels.
Okay.
Motels.
Okay.
Yeah. And my first stop was to an independent living facility in Escondido. I lasted 2 days there.
What does independent living mean?
It's for people who suffer from mental health, drugs, addiction.
Okay.
It's very, very low income.
Okay.
And it was cockroach infested. You had to bring your own toilet paper roll into the bathroom with you.
Okay, yeah.
You got one plate, one fork, one cup. I mean, it was disastrous. And
Yeah.
I didn't even get a bed.
Yeah, okay.
So after that, I'm still in the hotels. And day 27, I found a sober living in La Costa that I was able to get into. So in 3 days, I had my 30 days there.
Wow.
And I stayed until I had 90 days. And at 90 days, I moved out into a sober home, which is just a home that 5 of us agreed to be accountable, to stay sober, work a program. If there was suspicion, you'd get tested. If you relapsed, you move out for 30 days and then you can come back. I was there for 6 months, so a total of 9 months in sober living and the sober house. And on my 9 months, I got approved for my housing after 12 years.
For like low income disability housing, kind of?
Yeah,
That's what you mean?
kind of
Okay,
like that, yeah.
okay. Whoa. It took 12 years?
Actually, I think it was 13. Yeah.
You signed up 13, like you're on a wait list for that long?
Yeah, since my fall.
Oh, okay, since the fall.
Yeah.
Wow.
I eventually went on disability for the spinal cord injury.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, and now we're here.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And the crazy thing of it all is that I really think I'm a miracle. Like I don't for a second not think that I'm proof that anyone can recover any fucking thing you've been through as low as you could possibly go. Yeah. And, you know, my first bottom was when I hit rock bottom, literally the fucking pavement. And it didn't stop me. Having a spinal cord injury, that whole experience, it didn't stop me. But this last go of it in 2023, that was it. God wouldn't have me, jails wouldn't take me, and institutions, there was one left on the block that I hadn't been to. And we talk about jails, death, and institutions, and lucky for me, none of them worked out. And that's how I got the willingness to live prior to the open-mindedness and the honesty and all of that to want to work a program. And no inpatient would take me, no treatment facility would take me. I called all around trying to get myself committed voluntarily because I don't know anything outside of institutionalization.
Totally.
I'm perfect in there. I get A's, spoon feed me, blah, blah, blah. So now it's up to me and myself alone to go to AA, go to Eating Disorders Anonymous, go to my mental health program and have structure and make it my own program. I have made life a structured program for myself. And it's an invisible solution and it's free. It's a free program with an invisible solution and you don't need rehabs. I mean, if you can't afford it, just know that there's a way to do it by just working the program.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay, so steps. You're a 12-step person.
Yeah.
when did you start working? So on day 7, you found your sponsor. Yeah. When do you guys start working step 1? Shortly thereafter?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What is your experience with the steps? Like, how long did they take? And do you think is that a contributing factor into why this time was actually successful for you? Had you ever done them before?
Well, I'd done them.
Right, in
really
treatment or whatever, when you have to do the timeline and hand it in.
Never really did them. And I know that on day 73 of my sobriety, I was filled with rage and anger. Just coming to dealing with the spinal cord injury and what it entails on a daily basis, I had so much anger and rage towards this man who did that to his child. I wanted to place the blame all there. So the resentment prayer after 73 days of, pure and utter rage.
Yeah.
I was like screaming in the bathroom in the mornings every day. On day 73, that rage went away because of the resentment prayer.
So you had done your 4-step by around then?
Yeah, I had learned about the resentment prayer.
Okay.
But the first step was never a problem for me. I'd known I was an addict and an alcoholic my whole life.
Okay.
And was I powerless against it? Only until I tried to take my life. Otherwise, I thought I was powerful. So, and coming to believe, there's no doubt in my mind that something exists. Because the science can't prove how I'm here today.
Right.
With all the overdoses.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not possible. So, coming to believe wasn't really a problem. And what was really the biggest point and turning point for me was step 3. Because I was running the show my whole life. I always said, imagine that we're these little tiny humans on like a train track set, and there are these big people in white coats looking down on us, and we're just an experiment. And my experiment was worst case scenario. And they just kept giving me the worst case scenario, Yeah. But, and I was just being manipulated and like a puppet. But today, I believe wholeheartedly that giving up the reins, I can't, you can, I'll let you, is what's helped me. And I'll tell you what, with my eating disorder, by saying I will not do or be anything outside of what God intended for me to be. God did not want me to starve myself. God did not want me to purge. God does not want me to care so much about what's on the outside when living. No one's going to remember me if I was beautiful or not. They're going to remember me for my soul. And so I, in that 3rd step, said whatever size, shape, mold, model, weight I am, that God wants me to be, I will be. And that was a huge turning point in my eating disorder. I actually worked both programs at the same time, but I started the steps in EDA when I was on step 9 in AA.
When you turned that over to God, did that, because eating disorder is like the hardest thing to recover from. Yeah. How did the symptoms just really start to fade after that?
I cannot tell you. Like you were saying before, the way you felt, I can completely relate and identify. The moment my eyes would open, the very first blink in the morning in sobriety, I thought of food. What am I going to do? What am I going to eat? What am I not going to do? What did I eat yesterday? The moment my eye opened, and all throughout the obsessed, it took over my mind, soul, body, and spirit. And just by turning over and saying whatever God intended for me to be, that means don't manipulate my weight. Eat freely and enjoy my life and enjoy myself. And whatever I end up being is what I'm supposed to be. And that part is really what helped. And it does happen effortlessly. You do wake up one day and you look in the mirror, and it's going from the worst point of negativity to flipping the switch to the best point of positivity. It's all about the light. So if you could flip the switch and say, thank you for divorcing me, for instance. Now I can meet the real love of my life. Thank you for firing me from this job. Now I'll find my one true purpose. Be thankful for all the things that are going wrong. You look at everything as a lesson, a blessing, or an opportunity. And when you do that, you can only go up.
Wow. So what was the exact... how did you word the prayer to make it with your weight? Also, the 3rd step prayer?
Yeah. I actually changed. I haven't memorized my 3rd step prayer, but in EDA, you do rewrite your version of the 3rd step.
Okay.
And mine was somewhere along the lines of whatever mold, shape, size, model, weight I'll be, I will not starve. I will not purge. I will be as God intended. And I, every day, think and know that God is watching. And I'm embarrassed to starve, or I'm embarrassed to purge. I don't want him to see that.
Yeah. Because it's like you're saying what you want for me isn't right. So I'm going to take care of it myself. Wow.
And it's a really big deal.
It's like you did your own cognitive behavioral therapy on yourself.
Yes.
Which, I mean, is basically a lot of what the steps are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To some extent. Obviously, there's a spiritual experience too, but a lot of it is like the pattern recognition and then realizing that the patterns are linked to these behaviors. And so if I can adjust the behavior, I can escape these patterns. You know, a lot of it is that cognitive behavioral. So the eating disorder got better.
So I would not be here today if it weren't for both programs. I truly believe that, because in EDA, you know, when I got my last 5150, those horrible 3 days, the psychiatrist came out and said, "Why do you keep trying to kill yourself like this?" And I said, "Well, I feel the shame and the guilt." And she didn't look at me and say, "You're a dealer, you're a criminal, you're an addict, you're an alcoholic." She looked at me and said, "You suffer from a self-esteem problem." And it did not occur to me until a year later into my sobriety what she meant by that. And EDA is what paved the road to change my perspective on everything in life, to appreciate and love myself. If I loved myself, I wouldn't have been trying to kill myself.
Right.
Anyone I've ever claimed to love, or anyone that I thought was loving me, it couldn't be, because I was not the version of me I was meant to be. I have a new higher power, I have a new higher purpose, and I have a new perspective.
Yeah.
All three needed to take place in order for me to survive.
How did EDA change your perspective that much? It's just how it works?
It's constantly in the solution. You're always in the solution. So you have a problem, but you must you have milestones every day, something that's going right in your recovery.
Okay.
One thing that's going right. So today my milestone is showing up and being here.
Right.
Or making it to a meeting, or talking about self-love, or a goal that you've been trying to reach, an achievement.
And that's one of the things that they tell you to do in EDA?
Yeah, we recognize milestones in the beginning of every meeting.
Oh, okay,
So
that's cool.
all we do is point out the solution and the positivity. And it's the most amazing process to be able to flip the switch.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So that's been EDA, plus there's 12-step.
Yeah.
And so you're a year and 10 months sober now?
Yeah.
Wow. That's really amazing.
Yeah, and I graduated from the mental health program.
Okay. Is that through Exodus?
That came from, it was like the highest level of care that the state provided.
And it was like outpatient for mental health?
It was called Medical Health Systems North Coastal Act.
Oh, yeah, MHS. Yes. I went to MHS FRC, Family Recovery Center.
I know
There's
that.
one in Oceanside. Yeah, I went to that one. So what is your relationship like with your parents now?
I have never had a relationship like I do now with my mom.
Really?
Yeah, we're like buddies.
Yeah.
And my dad, actually, I'm flying into New York on the 26th to give my dad his 1-year token.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Has he ever had a year before?
No, he took 38 years of dirty tokens.
Oh my gosh. And like literally said, I have 38 years of sobriety?
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody knew though. Who knows?
I
You
knew.
weren't there. You knew. Yeah, right? You knew. Oh my gosh. So when do you think they realized you were telling the truth though? Because I'm sure over the years you would always say, I'm doing better, guys. Look at my house. Look at my fiance. I'm doing better. When do you think they realized, oh, this is real? She's really better.
Well, I mentioned that I call my sponsor every day, and I call that man I pray with every day. And another thing I've done for a year and 10 months every single day is call my mother and my father individually out of respect to tell them that I'm alive, sane, and sober.
Okay.
The disrespect in trying to take my life so many times. They were mourning me, picking out the coffin, thought I was coming home in a wooden box. And, you know, my mom is like my gal pal now. And it's really sad for me at times when I think about how close we can be now and how I'm 46. And, you know, but I look at it in the positive light that we at least have this experience. And it's a tough one with my dad because we're very much alike. And I haven't seen him not on a substance. So he's just first coming to, and to come to it, like he'll be 75 years old.
Yeah.
And to have been doing Oxy for 38 years like that.
Yeah.
You're gonna,
Oh, that was his thing?
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So you said you have a structure to your day now, an invisible structure that keeps you structured.
Yeah.
That keeps your life structured and moving forward. What does your structure look like day to day? Like if it's the ideal day for you, what do you do throughout the day?
The ideal day would be hitting an EDA meeting and an AA meeting per day. I do trauma recovery therapy.
Oh, right. We went.
And I do brain spotting there, which is a step up from EMDR. It's just a little bit different than EMDR. And I work with my sponsees. I have 3 in EDA, and I just gave a cake and a token to my sponsee who got a year. I gave it to her this morning in AA. And I actually, through my sponsor, got the opportunity to mentor a 16-year-old drug addict who's a runaway and at a facility.
Okay.
So I spend time there. I do the H&I panel every other Monday. I'm just constantly going and working on myself.
Talk to me a little bit about the trauma therapy and brain spotting.
Brain spotting is super interesting. From what I've heard, EMDR is kind of like sitting in the trauma and processing it.
Yeah.
And brain spotting is more like imagining that your mind is like an English muffin. So there's all these nooks and crannies. So she takes a stick and you follow it with your eyes until she can see in your eyes that you're not disassociated and that your eyes are positioned in a place where you're thinking about the category that's going on. So for me, the first one we did was lights. I was very triggered by the flashing lights on cars, sirens, and I thought all of that was from 9/11. Flashing lights in sobriety were triggering me, like trauma response city. And when we used the stick to go back and forth, it went from 9/11, but then as she moves the stick, it pops into one of those nooks and crannies, and under that category of lights, a subcategory comes up, like let's say when I was young at the dentist, something happened. The dentist light. And
you remember that while you're doing it?
Yeah, you just skip into different nooks and crannies.
That's crazy.
And you become desensitized.
And are you saying these things out loud or you're just, okay. So you're just talking while they do the stick thing.
And they can prompt questions, yeah.
Whoa. See, I want to do this. My co-host was just recently talking about this, and it sounds so cool. Wow.
It really, and it fucking works.
Damn. So when you say it works, what does that mean for you?
That means I can sit behind a car now and the blinker doesn't drive me crazy.
Okay.
When the sirens and the lights for ambulance, police car, whatever it may be, fire engine go by, I'm okay. Whereas I would get like an anxiety attack. Even the lights just on a traffic light when they change.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Mm-hmm. And then the trauma therapy, is that with the brain spotting, or that's you're working through the 9/11
right,
grief,
working through everything that I'd ever been through. I've never dealt with one occasion in my life. I've been numb through all of it.
Is there, I mean, I'm sure there are 9/11 like grief groups and therapy groups. Did you ever get involved in any of those, or are there any? There
are, and no, I never. Okay. I, like everything else, I never grieved my sister's death. I never dealt with 9/11. I've what happens is I deal with A, and I don't get done with A, and B starts. And then I'm dealing with A and B, but C starts.
Sure.
And it's like the whole alphabet, like a snowball going down a 90-degree angle mountain. And now here I am with the whole alphabet in this huge ball that I've got to unfold all the way back up a mountain to get to the root.
Wow. Well, your story is incredible. I mean, you've done so much healing and work on yourself, and you are a miracle. You said you feel like a miracle. You are a miracle. To have that level of psychosis for that long and come through as a functional adult woman in society is miraculous.
I think so too. I definitely think it's the miracle, and I also think it's the program, the people, God.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't have done it without everything that I've been doing. So I just don't stop doing what I've been doing.
Wow.
That is I don't know what in particular is doing it.
Right. Yeah. So if someone is listening, a woman in, say, her mid-30s, lots of trauma, mental illness issues, 5150s, suicide attempts, the whole nine, what would you recommend they do or start with?
Honesty. By far, number one. You've got to get honest with yourself. It does say in the big book that we need to get honest with ourselves. It doesn't say something about others.
Okay.
We have to get honest with ourselves. And I lied my whole life about everything.
Even to yourself?
Even to myself.
Okay.
You know, I never dealt... basically kept going on as if my sister were alive and I just weren't seeing her. I never grieved. Like I just absolutely would not be honest with myself about anything.
Okay.
I would also say that if you are suffering from mental health, eating disorder, and substance and alcohol abuse, to start with the mental health and stabilize. And once you're stable and more of a right mind, you can work on sobriety. Because if you're not of sound mind, you're not going to be able to work on sobriety.
Yeah.
And at sobriety, your eating disorder is going to come out like a bat out of hell.
Yeah.
And when it does, you'll have been going through the steps to be able to do the steps in EDA. And by step 9 in AA, you can start EDA and it not be overwhelming. And you're familiar with the steps. It's very much the same. It's the same 12 steps, but it's done very differently. And the mental health program, I was miserable like in it. I didn't want to do it per se, but the processing and all of what was required, it was all really helpful.
Yeah,
and it's all what I spent my life not wanting to do.
So relationships and dating, because you've obviously had a couple of serious relationships. Where are you at with that right now?
I'm single and I'm looking.
Okay, all right.
Well, I'm not looking. I know that in time God
But you're open to dating?
Yes. Okay. And that's new for me, just as of late. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Did you choose to kind of hold off on that for a little while?
I did. The first year of my sobriety, the fiance came back.
Oh, okay.
And we weren't engaged again, but dating. And in the first year of my sobriety, I never felt more apart from him.
Even though you were together?
So well. I was growing and he stayed the same. He still smokes a lot of pot. I am worth so much more than having conversation with somebody who's high and is going to forget what I said.
Yep.
It doesn't mean I don't love him. It just means I know my worth today. And that's the biggest thing I'd say to all these ladies is I think I'm a really fucking cool and rad chick today. And coming from someone who's tried to take their lives so many times, that's unbelievable. To have self-love, that's what this whole thing is about, love. Yeah. It's all about love, God's love, the love we can show for others, what we could do for others, how we could be of service. Love is everything. And if you don't love yourself, you're always going to have that shame, that guilt, that anger, that resentment. It's just all going to be there. So working the steps actually sheds the skin of the snake towards love. The
charge, confessing the crime.
Yeah.
Anything ever come of that?
No, I have a text from that day that says your case number is from...
Oh, they filed a case?
It says, I could take it out. It just says a case number in a text and...
From 2023?
Yeah.
Well, now they didn't press charges and it's been over a year, so you should be...
Yeah, I'm fine. And if I'm not, then I'm not.
Yeah. Did anybody even seem to take it seriously at all while you were there or no? Like, did they ask you for details? What were you mailing? Where were you sending things? Did they seem like they were actually taking it seriously?
The officer that told me I was sitting for 2 hours unnecessarily and needed to go elsewhere, the really good looking one, he said, well, where are you living right now? And I had just gotten thrown out of the last hotel. It was the morning that I came out of the overdose.
Okay.
I was driving around and I was like, well, in this moment, my car. And he's like, yeah, jail is not for homeless people to find shelter. And he took that angle on it.
Oh, okay.
Like, no matter what I said or did, there was a different angle.
Right. I can't believe they gave you a case number.
It's right here. It says, hello, thank you for contacting the police department. Your reference number is, incident number is, if anything should change about your call for service, if you find and cannot wait for the officer, please let us know. Carlsbad Police Department. And then another one follows. Thank you for coming.
So they filed you as an incident versus a case, it sounds like. Like it was a mental health issue, which is kind of how they did treat it.
Yeah.
Well, also, it had been several years, too, since you had been doing that, right?
They looked up my record, and they said, well, you haven't been in trouble since 2013.
What had you been arrested for in the past?
In the past, I've been arrested for shoplifting, for a DUI, and nearly convicted for the kidnapping.
Oh, you got arrested for that?
I was taken to Las Colinas and put in solitaire.
Oh, that's right. That's when that happened.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. And you had like a charge and you had to get a lawyer? And...
No, I went to the DA and she just...
Oh, that's right. That's when they dismissed you that day. When you look back on that situation, do you think that happened? Or do you think that there was any part of your delusion and meth addiction, or do you know the girl said that to you?
It's cool that in brain spotting, you're able to begin to get to the root and be able to tell the difference between true and false. There are a lot of truths that I've always been so frightened to talk about because they sound so unbelievable.
Yeah.
But there is no doubt in my mind that took place. This
Wow.
100% certainty.
Oh my gosh.
I know because I've dealt with sexual abuse.
Yeah.
And so as much as I was trying to help her, I was trying to save myself.
And you never were able to like find him or catch up with them or anything later?
Frightened as can be.
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
Yeah.
That is wild. That's
I know
wild.
his name. I know all of it. I have a picture of him, like you name it. But what am I going back?
Yeah, what are you going to
do?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, shit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you feel today talking about all this?
I feel great.
You do? Okay, good.
I feel
Thank you for sharing so openly.
It was such a weight lifted that I'd been carrying for so long. And that weight is the shame and the guilt. And that weight is, not loving myself. And that weight is all of what I put upon myself.
Yeah.
I have to stop looking like life did something to me. Because I have a choice as to what I'm going to do with myself regarding that.
Can you look back and say that, and this might be a bit of a stretch, are you grateful for all of those experiences, for what they gave you now?
They're my greatest asset.
Okay, that's what I always say too. That's like why I do the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the greatest asset I have.
Yeah. Wow.
I really feel like the fire in my belly is so much stronger than the fire that tried to take me out for recovery. I truly believe, like, if I were to get a tattoo, it would be of a phoenix. Like, I'm there, I'm on fire, I love recovery.
That was my studio logo. I don't know if you can see that.
I can.
It was a phoenix, and it was the sunrise or sunset colors, because like what you think is a sunset could actually be a sunrise. Yeah,
I love
which is why that's that. That logo is the thing I'm like the proudest. Oh, there you can see it in black where it says Studio Cybrid. That phoenix. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
That was the logo at our gym.
I love it.
But it's so true, and we all are that, especially in recovery. Mm-hmm. Well, dang,
we
man.
rise.
Yes, we do.
We rise from all of it. But you have to be willing, and you have to do the freaking work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of people I don't believe that just going to meetings will keep you sober.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be a dry drunk, but without working the steps, it's the blueprint for life. It's the roadmap. It is, I feel that we should have learned it in school.
Totally.
As an education. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. Do you have a favorite step, or a step that was the most impactful in your life?
The most impactful step was 3.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. In substance use, how did you word that and turn that over? What did that look like for you with using?
Well, see, I was beaten into the willingness with my drugs and alcohol, because when I couldn't die, when I couldn't be committed anymore, and when I couldn't go to jail, what were my options?
Right.
What were my options? Like, I can't die. I can't punish myself. What do I do? And I didn't think anyone would take me because I was a dealer. I didn't think I'd be wanted in AA.
Oh.
I thought I was the enemy.
Okay.
So it was hard to go and try to, be, and that's why that day I was like, no, I have to be honest.
Yeah. And you've learned, obviously, nobody cares. There's a lot of people that were connects also. Yeah. You should write a book with not even just your story, but mental health, your journey.
Yeah.
In terms of suggestions, like a self-help book.
I would absolutely. I have a name for the book.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to share it, or you don't have to?
I don't know. If I do and someone steals it, then what?
Okay, so tell me and I'll bleep it out.
I will.
Okay. That's what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay. I love that. All right, I'll bleep it out. Yeah, totally. Oh my God, I love that. That's really good. Well, you definitely should.
I will. I will do something. I am absolutely driven to be in and do what my purpose in life is, and that's to be of service.
Yeah.
And I believe it's in recovery and mental health and eating disorders, and that is my goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Are your plans to stay here in San Diego, or are you going to go back to New York? You're going to stay here?
Yeah.
Okay. It's nice here.
Yeah, after my mom and dad pass, I have nothing in New York.
Right, yeah.
So my chosen family is out here.
Well, Kelly, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming over and for sharing your story. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Thank you.